Internet. Mike here, Andy here. We're so glad that you are here, wherever here is. It's so great because we get emails from all over the country, and now we're starting to get emails from all over the world. So Carolyn emailed me and said that we have folks listening in an aircraft carrier.
That's cool.
In the Gulf, and then we've got a destroyer, I think, or a cruiser in the Sea of Japan. We have listeners there. We have my friend Josh, who's a police officer, who at 7:48 this morning, that we're recording this on Monday and we'll release it on Monday, texted me and said, "Hey, where's Vox?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Where's Morning Fix?"
We've spoiled the folks, but Andy moved last week. I'm moving this week. And so it's been a bit crazy trying to find some time. And in the process of moving, you learn a lot about yourself. Andy and I were just having a conversation before we went live, and we realized there are two kinds of people who move.
Okay.
There are those who do it. They're handy. They build stuff. They fix stuff. They have straps for their cars, and so they're like the worker bees, you know. Yeah. And then we realize there are the opportunists who are like myself, who know worker bees, and so Andy just got roped into. He thought he was gonna record a podcast today. He's helping me move, and he's building some bookshelves, and so it's very exciting. That is the definition of opportunism right there.
Right, and Vox itself, I think the way.
Yes. We just need help, and so hello wherever you are. Hello to my brother. In Sacramento. It's so funny. I mean, it really is amazing. And we always pray before we record and thank God for the great privilege. And we get to hear from many of you who are not religious, who are pre-church, post-church, in between church. And so we're very grateful for the opportunity to do this. Now, what I want to do today, Andy, is I want to talk about disappointment.
Yeah.
Because it seems universal. It seems like there is this gap that exists in human life between how we think life should be and how it turns out, right? And one of the examples of that we talked about a couple podcasts ago is the idea of a soulmate, you know?
Yeah.
That you go in to marriage thinking it's going to be one way, and then after 5, 10 minutes or months or years, you realize, oh, this isn't going to be everything I thought it was going to be. You know, parenting, a new job, a new paycheck, you know. So there we have these moments as human beings that are absolutely transcendent. You know, you're at a concert of your favorite band and you look around and you see 15,000 people all emotionally engaged. You're at the rim of the Grand Canyon and you're taken in by nature. You're hiking in Yellowstone. You're at the beach, or some sort of relational moment. You connect so deeply with somebody else. I mean, we have these moments where we feel full. We feel fully alive. And the problem with human life is that they're just moments, right? They're just They come, they happen, and then they're gone. And yet they echo with the reminder that it's supposed to be better, right? Our marriage is supposed to be better. My internal attitude toward life is supposed to be better. I'm supposed to be more grateful. I mean, there's this gap that exists between life as it is and life as we think it should be. And it can happen if you're married or you're single or you're young or you're old. I think older people are more in touch with it because we've seen, and I'm including you in this, Andy, as a 30-something, we've lived enough to see all of those dreams of our teenage years or early 20s just kind of go, oh, it's even if you get what you want, it's not everything that you thought it would be.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk just theologically about disappointment. Because one of the things I wrote in a book called Astonished is this is the God who disappoints everybody, and so disappointment is part of the fuel of the Christian life. It's not, see, we sell Jesus like we sell like consumer products, right? So one of the stories I tell in Astonished is my wife and I got suckered in, we were first married, to something called the Ab King. The Ab King, we saw it in an infomercial, and I'm a huge fan of infomercials. They're just so genius. How you can begin an infomercial thinking this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and at the end you're going, I think I could really use that.
I need that.
Right.
I need that.
Right, and I only have 8 more minutes.
Right.
And so we got suckered into something called the Ab King, which its promise was a gentle electric current would you would put this belt on, and it would constrict your abdominal muscles so that you would get the benefit of a sit-up without having to do one. Now, if you know what I look like, you can see the appeal. And
its success.
And oh yes, it's clearly the Ab King disappointed. But it was funny because my wife and I are going, hey, this is great. This is the American dream, right? I get the results of work without having to work. Perfect. So we get suckered into the Ab King. It comes, we unwrap it, I put it on, and instead of a gentle electric current, what it felt like there was a white hot fork that was being pushed by a very strong person into your stomach. and instead of it, you would just kind of be walking around like this, and it would, and it was awful. It was horrific. And so the Ab King died. But I realize as I've made an art of infomercials that very often sermons are infomercials for Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? So we sell Jesus, at the beginning you're not quite sure, but at the end, after so many testimonies and so much promising, here's Jesus. And we kind of have this thing where, Jesus is going to make you, there's this hole in your heart, and Jesus is going to fill that hole, and you'll never be lonely again, and you'll never, in some of it most extreme forms, it's you'll be rich and you'll be healthy and you'll be happy. God will heal you of all your diseases, and he'll restore relationships and make your marriage better, and you'll be a better parent, a better business person, and the list of benefits goes on and on and on. And so it always struck me that sermons feel a bit like infomercials, and I felt that. I felt like I'm a pitch man, for kind of a salesperson for Jesus. I say sham, you say wow.
Right.
Like that sort
Set
of.
Set it and forget it.
Yes. Yeah. See. So when we present Jesus this way, we do a lot of damage. Because first, Jesus never talked about himself this way ever. He never bribed anybody. He never begged anybody. In fact, at his moments of greatest popularity, he'd offer hard teaching. He'd go to a solitary place. He would talk about the cost of following him. He was unbelievably free from focus groups and popular acceptance, But his followers are not. And so we feel this pressure very often to present Jesus like you would the Ab King. And the problem is, Jesus refuses to live up to the promises we make in his name. And so what we do when we talk about Jesus like we talk about the Ab King is we actually set people up to think, when disappointment comes, to think there's something wrong with God or there's something wrong with them. There's no other option. And the option I want to put forward is, no, you actually were sold a false way of understanding this. That's a contract. Right? That's not a covenant. A contract is, okay, Jesus, I give you faith and, some time in the morning to read my Bible, and I pray and I give and whatever else. And then you give me blessing and protection and joy and whatever else. And very often that's the way we present Jesus, as if Jesus were just here to improve our life. Right. The problem is Jesus never talks about himself this way. But secondly, God purposefully, I think, disappoints us. So I want to get into a little Bible.
Great. Before you do, can I make another note on disappointment?
Yes. First of all, you disappoint me.
Yeah.
You are the living embodiment of, I'd hoped for a host and I had expectations for a co-host, and then I got you. Yeah. And you're here in your Ducks jersey, and your Ducks hat and your burnt orange tennis shoes and your burnt orange shorts and a lot of orange.
Yeah.
And it really isn't it's freaking me out, Andy.
Well, it's quite the day to tout our orange.
Why?
In regards to disappointment, I was
is hockey season, is it still going on?
It is. We just started playoffs. Or playoffs are just beginning.
Oh boy.
And last night, the Kings found their very great disappointment in losing the Pacific Division champions to the Ducks. That's right.
Okay.
It might be one of... I want to look into the actual stats of this, and then if you out there know this, I want to know if our team made the greatest comeback we've seen in NHL history over the course of a game count.
I can answer that for you, Andy.
Is that right?
Who cares? Who cares? All hockey season is, all baseball season, it's just pre-football. That's all that is. We're just killing time until football season gets here. Yeah. So appreciate that personal anecdote, Andy. Yep. That was disappointing as well. Now, So I want to spend a little time in Genesis, and again, if you're not a Bible fan, I think there's stuff here for you. I think there's stuff that's interesting and helpful, even if you're not a follower of Jesus or a fan of the Scriptures. And so we try not to be too, sermony, but there's some interesting stuff here that I want to throw out and see what you think. So if there are any hockey fans, evidently, if you're a Kings fan, this is live for you. If you're a Ducks fan, then it's tough to get in touch with today. But the Bible opens with this picture of a God who is so powerful and so intelligent that this God speaks things into existence. That let there be light, and there was light, and let there be water, and there was water, and let there be sky, and there was sky, and then. In contrast to other ancient Near Eastern creation stories, the biblical creation stories that God created humans, and God did it so that God's image would be reflected throughout the created order. That when it says that human beings are made in the image of God, that's a temple word. That the way kings in the ancient Near East would extend territory is that they would build monuments of themselves that were considered images, or in temples they would put a monument or a statue or something that represented the gods. And so human beings were to be God's images on the earth, that we were to reflect, male and female, some of God's benevolent governance over the created order. We were not to rape it, to pillage it, to strip mine it. We were to exercise the same creative intelligence and power that God exercised in the making of it. We were to exercise in the stewarding of what had been made. And so in chapter 1, you get this kind of narrative poem about the creation of everything and God fashioning sort of a place for him to dwell. And then in chapter 2, you kind of zero in on this first man and this first woman. And of course, there's lots of debate. Are Adam and Eve real? Were they primates? Were they the only people there? I mean, we can get into all sorts of fascinating conversation. I want to sidestep all of that by just reflecting on a couple of things in the text. So in chapter 2, in verse 7, there's this interesting line where it says that the Lord God made the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. All right, so and there's a word play here that you miss in English. In Hebrew, the word for man is Adam or Adam, but Adam sounds cooler. And the word for ground or dust is the word Adamah. And so the man is named after the ground he's made from. The Adam is made from the Adamah. So there's some sort of connection between man and ground that the scriptures want to highlight, all right? And that the man here, and both male and female in chapter 1 are given work to do. They're to rule over the earth, they're to subdue it, to fill it. And again, those aren't conquering words, those are serving words in their original context. And so there's this lump of dust, God breathes his spirit, now you have man. Now there's a big debate over, is that a male? Is that androgynous? male and female together, and they're split in a little bit. And this has ramifications for actually the women in ministry conversation we're going to talk about someday, part 2, Andy, after I get done moving.
Yeah, I'll get working on it.
All right, I like that. Now, then it says, and we talked about this with soulmate, then it says that it was not good that the man was alone. And so God is going to create an ezer kenegdo, an alike opposite, an ally who is an alike opposite. And it's fascinating because the in the biblical narrative, and again, I get it, all the questions this raises is the man falls asleep and God takes part of the man's side and fashions, the word is built. He built a woman out of the man's side. And it's interesting because the man then, when he awakes and sees the woman, he declares her to be his alike opposite. He says, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called Isha, for she was taken out of Ish. She shall be called female because she was taken out of male. She shall be called feminine because she was taken out of masculine," is the idea. So she shall be called Isha, I believe that's the woman, and she was taken out of Ish, the man. I think that's how it goes. But even if it goes the other direction, notice the wordplay. That the woman is named out of her origin as well. Okay? So the Adam was created from the Adama, and the Isha was created from the Ish. Now, I think, man, I'm getting those confused. I think it's Isha and Ish. I think Ish is man, Ish is woman. But okay, who cares? Hebrew scholars, I'm sure none of you are listening. So, but I want you to see the connection. Yeah. So the man is named in relationship to the ground. The woman is named in relationship to the man. And don't stereotype this, because this isn't hierarchy. This isn't subservience. This isn't, women are just built for relationships and that's it. No. Both of them are given the destiny and the commission to rule together as ezer kenegdos. Okay, so don't gender stereotype this yet. Now, what happens in this garden is that the man and the woman were given one command. They were given permission, first of all, to fill the earth by having sex. We'll talk about that. Not today, Andy. So,
okay. Now we're really talking about disappointment on the podcast.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Someone asked me, "How do you have an incredible marriage?" And my response was, "Listen, make love to your spouse once every 40 days, whether you need it or not." And that's kind of where it is for the Eries right now. Not that I'm counting or keeping track or in any way.
But you do have reminders set on your phone.
I do. And I set them on my wife's phone.
Okay.
Honey.
There you go.
Honey. Anyway, well, that's a whole... I'm editing right there. All right. So that was just me hitting the desk again. So the man and the woman are given this co-rulership and this commission to do this together. And they're each named differently, but they're given permission to work in this garden, to enjoy all of its benefits. But there's this one tree they're not supposed to eat the fruit of, and of course they're tempted to eat the fruit of that tree, so they do. In Genesis chapter 3, God does this kind of this amazing thing, and this is where we start turning into disappointment. God actually speaks. Now, we use the word curses, but they're not curses in the way we would think of. They're not judgments. They're more like renderings of consequences because of their disobedience. All right. This isn't like God arbitrarily said, "Okay, I'm gonna flip that switch and like this is the timeout I want you to be in," as if it were arbitrary. This is very, very strategic, and it's related to the destiny the man and the woman were to have. So in Genesis 3, there are these judgments. One spoken against the talking serpent, which we've talked about before. One is spoken against the woman, and it's really, really interesting. So here's what God says to the woman: "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor, you will give birth to children." Now, what was the first command given to the man and to the woman in chapter 1? It was to fill the earth, to have sex, to make babies, to fill the earth with people, other image bearers. And so it's interesting that God frustrates that. So he creates this command and this impulse to fill the earth, and God frustrates that. Now filling the earth will hurt. Right?
Yeah.
And as guys, obviously we can't really relate to that. And all the ladies said, thank you, Jesus, for epidurals. But it's fascinating that was one of the curses. And then the second thing that God says to the woman is that your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Now, like we talked about with Ezra Kenegdo, God's design was never this. God's design was never that the man and the woman would engage in a power struggle, because that's what this means. The word desire will be for your husband. It's a power word. It's a mastery word. It's a control word. And the word rule is a desire word, a mastery word, a control word. And so what you have instead of Ezra Kenegdo is you have now God frustrating the male-female relationship so that it will no longer be the source of meaning, joy, and satisfaction God intended it to be. Do you see what he's done?
Yeah.
He gave the woman a commission. First, fill the earth, right, with the man's help, but she was the primary filler of the earth. He frustrates that. And then the woman was named out of her origin from the man, and so he frustrates the man-woman relationship, all right? So that instead of being a source of blessing and joy and completeness and wholeness, now it's a power struggle.
Yeah.
Now it adds to the pain. And then... So it's fascinating how strategic God is. And then, and this is the kicker, to the man he says, cursed is the, what's he named after?
Ground.
Yeah. So I'm going to curse the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat from it all the days of your life. And then he ultimately says, from dust you came, to dust you will return. And so what's God cursed with the guy? He curses the ground. Now, none of this is random, right? It's all been set up. Right? They were called to fill the earth and to subdue it. Okay? Now God has said filling the earth will be painful and subduing will be painful.
Yeah.
Right? Earth won't cooperate with you. The man was named in relationship to the ground. That's spoken against. The woman was named in relationship to the man. That was spoken against. And so now what you have, and this is so unbelievably important, Andy, what you have is God frustrating all of the impulses he gave us to find meaning and purpose and significance in human life.
Yeah, okay.
All right? Now here's the last part, because I've had people say to me when I teach this, no, not my God. My God would never do this. And my response is, well, of course he did. And he did it as an act of mercy. This is mercy.
Yeah, I was going to be my question, like,
okay.
What is the necessity of this frustration?
Oh my goodness. Because, Andy, if you could find meaning, purpose, and significance apart from God, we would. And so God makes sure that the natural bent to find meaning, purpose, and significance in relationships, in work, in labor, in significance, all of those things are now frustrated to drive self-interested people back to himself. Because now we're bent, right? We're bent and we're only in it for what's in it for us. Yeah. And so no one comes to be a Jesus follower because they just intellectually one day say, oh yeah, of course, he's the Alpha and the Omega. No, they come to Jesus because they're broken, they're hurting, they need forgiveness, they need cleansing or healing, whatever it is, right? We come out of our pain, we come out of our weakness, we come out of our loneliness, we come out of our brokenness. And I just want to throw out the idea that the reason that money will never satisfy isn't due to the nature of money, although it could be, but it's also due to the nature of God's strategic judgments to ensure that meaning, purpose, and significance are found only in Him. All right? Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
So what God does is He keeps us alive and thirsty. He keeps us hungry, right? Because no matter how many promotions you get, you still want more. No matter how much good is in your marriage, there's still that gap that exists between what it could be in your mind and what it actually is in real life. There's that gap in work. There's that gap in school, gap in friendships. The gap is everywhere. And part of the reason for that gap, of course, is that we live in a fallen world and we're bent towards darkness and other people hurt us and we have a real enemy and all of those things. But part of the gap also is God's creative genius in making it so that life isn't going to work to the degree that we think it should apart from Him. Now, the danger is, the minute you say that, you have to nuance it, because that sounds like the infomercial pitch.
Yeah.
Right? So
if you just got God and you read your Bible
right.
three times a month with free shipping and handling, you will find your purpose.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what we have to do is be very careful at this point, because it is God's genius, I think, to drive us back to himself, right? To keep us from, and again, that's not to say there aren't moments when it's amazing. There are moments when we enjoy the common grace of this world, and money does satisfy for a season. And this new relationship I'm in is incredible. And this affair I just started, man, I mean, it's just so adrenaline filled. I mean, that's not to say there aren't moments when it feels like it fits together. But again, those are just moments. They're not big swaths of our life. They're just these bits and pieces. And the rest of it is lived learning how to live in the midst of it not being as great as it could be, right? Not being as great. And the key to understanding is, okay, so when God enters in to the equation, what's God's agenda? Is God's agenda filling that gap, right? Is it his job to fill it? Is his job to fill that gap? And some will say, absolutely. So if there's a gap between how wealthy you want to be and how wealthy you are, then you send us your money, and God will bless you with more money. If there's a gap in your health between how healthy you want to be and how healthy you are, you send us this money and we'll pray for you, or whatever it is, right? We have all these gap sorts of fixes. And what I want to suggest is, even with God in the picture, the gaps shift. Yes, in my relationship with God, I feel like there is meaning and purpose and significance in ways that there weren't prior to. But there's still gaps that exist. They're now just God-shaped gaps. Hey, God, how come you haven't come through here? Hey, God, how come you haven't answered this prayer here? Hey, God, how come it seems like it's in your best interest to heal this person? Why don't you heal this person? Now disappointment has shifted, right? And now I think, okay, so God, if you're real, you should be way more obvious. And if you're real, you should be way more powerful at work in my life. And if you're real, why wouldn't you work through me more powerfully, right? I mean, here I am. I'm trying to make you look good. I'm an infomercial salesman for Jesus. How come you're not doing more and bigger stuff, right? To show yourself. And so it's fascinating that, to me, many Christians now deal with a gap between what they think their relationship with God should be and what it turns out to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's it's challenging.
In what way?
Oh, it seems that is the commonplace of our common, that's redundant. It seems like how, it is how we think as Christians. It's kind of like, I believe in this real thing, and God, you're tangible. Now that I've accepted that you're the person responsible for my purpose,
right? When
I'm asking to define it and it's not clear, all of a sudden it's like, well, what are you doing? I thought you were supposed to be X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And so that's like this.
That's when it shows. In those moments, that's when it shows we bought the contract idea of faith.
Yeah.
See, and that's the point. God isn't looking for contract people. He'll honor that, he's so great that if that's what faith you're bringing, that's what faith he'll receive. But he will never let us stay where we're just trying to make an algebraic equation of, if I give 10%, then God will bless me. If I pray for my kids, they'll never, wander off. If I keep myself pure before marriage, it will just be amazing sex afterwards, right? Those are just formulas. That's not actual biblical faith. And what do we talk about? What's faith, right? Faith is action that's based on trust. It's covenant relationship. It is
not intellectual certainty, yeah.
Right. So all of this plays in. So what I want to suggest is, first, and just to recap, first, in the biblical story, God is very, very creative in using our self-interest against us. And so if money would satisfy, we'd stop there. If sex would satisfy, we'd stop there. But there is this perpetual search we go on, right? It's deeply existential in nature. And it's because I think of Genesis 3, that God awakens us to the possibilities of life without the fall, without sin and death, without the darkness in us and outside of us. And because of that, we're restless. We're restless. Well, then we come to God. And we come to God out of our own self-interest. And God is so beautiful that God receives that. But then God has to he has to disappoint us in order to train us in the kind of faith he's interested in. So the ancients talk about something called the dark night of the soul. When faith doesn't work, when your prayer seems like it's bouncing off the ceiling, when you open a Bible that seems so interesting and vibrant, and now it's just dust, and God seems far away, and that's the testimony of so many of the Psalms. Many of the great heroes of faith went through something like this, and many in church history have identified seasons where you're just in the wilderness and you're wandering and you're thinking God is letting you down, but when in actuality what God's doing is he's almost what's a good way to say this? He's de-gapping you. He's saying, listen, this isn't how this works. You've come to me with expectations that have to do with gaps in your life, and I'm doing something altogether different. And so part of the Christian journey is to realize the reward of following Jesus is Jesus, right? It's not the things you get from following Jesus, right?
Sure.
Well, that's an easy thing to say and a really hard thing to learn. And part of the learning of that is the realization that even with God working in your life, bad things still happen. Disappointments still happen. People let you down. People hurt you. You do dumb things and self-destructive things, right? There's still all of that junk out there. And the temptation, if you're in the contract model, is to think, well, here's just more gaps. See, the infomercial lied, because I thought if God came into my life, all the gaps would be gone. No. God doesn't take away all the gaps. Some he does, for sure. I mean, I feel alive and purposeful, and I feel meaning and significance. I feel hope. I feel joy. I don't know that all of those things would be there in the same measure had I not been walking with Jesus for a long time. But at the same time, there's still these pockets, right, of pain and grief and disappointment. And what God's doing is he's training me not to see those as gaps anymore, but to see those as something different. And let me illustrate what I mean by something different. Are you tracking with me so far?
Yeah, definitely. I've kind of always, and this is kind of helping to put a bit more theology and language to my thoughts. I've always kind of prescribed to the idea that when we look at fruit as a benefit of a lifestyle, we look at the fruit of the Spirit.
Yep.
If our life
joy,
was,
peace,
joy,
patience,
kindness, peace, love, and patience. If we were truly pursuing those things,
that was out of order. That was very out of order.
Which matters.
Yes.
And most important, love. When I think this helps to defend the idea that if you're truly pursuing those things, you find that those aren't necessarily self-serving natures. They're kind of given to us to provide for others. It's like it's something like when you're actually living in it, you find that if those are the things you're actually pursuing, those are the things that tend to close the gaps. But to me, in my mind, I feel that the necessity of those has to also have the opposite. It has to have the frustration, because you can't know joy unless you know pain.
Right.
And you can't know patience unless you know anxiety. And you can't know love unless you know hate. And it's kind of like if that other side didn't exist, if it was all just this Unitarian, kind of life,
right,
and we couldn't experience pain, we couldn't experience all of that, I don't know that we could fully understand those fruits.
Right.
So it's like for me, I've always kind of accepted the idea that I'm okay that God frustrates the situations and creates disappointment, because that's the only way that I can actually fully have a balance of understanding the fruits of the Spirit and understanding how to get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's wonky.
We got it. Well,
yeah.
Well, you're wonky. And secondly, we got to be really careful here, because what we're not saying is that every disappointment's from God.
Sure. Okay.
We're not saying that the disease, because some people will. Some people say everything that happens in the world is God's will.
Okay.
And that is absolutely not what the Bible teaches, even though there will be many that disagree.
And this goes to the idea of I think I'm aligning with you that God's designed to frustrate something as an intention to bring him back to the original design.
Yes. If we're speaking at that meta of a level,
right?
So that the human heart is restless. That's St. Augustine's very famous statement. Our hearts are restless until they find their rest, our rest in the Lord. That's true, that there is this sense of restlessness. The problem is that God uses this restlessness. We bring it to him with the expectation that it will be gone now. Yeah. And I want to say, no, I don't see that in the scriptures. I see it as being redefined and being fuel for the Christian life. So here's what I mean. All right, let me get very, very practical. When we have unmet desires, and all of us do, the single people that want to be married, the parents that can't have kids, the same-sex attracted person that, is trying to follow Jesus and trying to say, okay, so really, I'm not allowed to have a sexually fulfilling relationship. I'm not allowed to be married. I mean, you have all of this. I mean, it could be mental illness. It can be physical health. It can be any number of issues. Really, we have three options as Jesus followers. One option, and this is kind of the world's option, it's to escape and to numb. So we got a gap. Well, what do we do with that gap? Well, we run, we escape, we go to Vegas, because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? We drink, we medicate, we distract ourselves with games, and we're always on our phones, and we're always distracted by social media. Like, we're always plugged in. There's never any silence or solitude, never any soul work. We're constantly on the move. We're constantly seeking the next experience, the next high. We're constantly looking for, there was this song that I find so fascinating. It's by Tove Lo.
Yeah.
Right?
Tove Lo's great.
I get high all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm missing you, something like that. And it's just really disturbing. She's eating Twinkies and binging in the bathtub and going to sex clubs. And it's all because, she's alienated from this person. And I listened to it, and I was so haunted by it. It's a catchy tune, but when I was listening to the words, I was going, that's, in its extreme form, that's what the world offers, right? That's what we do. And so my body becomes an instrument of distraction as I seek the next pleasurable experience, or, and the danger, of course, is you get so numb and you get so hollowed out that you can't enjoy anything anymore. But that's not what escaping and numbing promises us in the beginning. It promises us, that we don't have to face whatever the gap is that's sitting in there. So that's kind of the secular option. And we see that all over the place, right? We were out to dinner the other night, and we're not sitting in judgment, but noticing here are families and couples that are sitting at dining, in restaurant, they're sitting at restaurant tables, and none of them are talking to each other. They're all looking at their phones. And it's just interesting, right? And so escaping and numbing is a favorite way. Now, what the church does is the church encourages us to pretend that disappointment with God or with life or with marriage or with sex or whatever, that doesn't exist. So escape and numb is option one. Pretend is option number two, right? Good Christian people aren't supposed to be disappointed in their sex lives. Good Christian people aren't supposed to be disappointed with the amount of money they make. Good Christian people aren't supposed to be disappointed with how their kids turned out, right? We just are supposed to slap on these religious cliches and, man, God is good all the time, and never be bummed with the way things turned out, Or if we are bummed and disappointed, it's always got to be in the past tense. Man, I used to struggle with that, or, it's never like, this is the crappiest thing. God, what in the world are you doing? And the only people we give permission to be that messy are people who are addicts or people that are dealing with cancer or the death of a loved one or something, right? But the rest of us who just suffer from this low grade sort of disappointment, man, good Christian people aren't supposed to live there. And so we just learn to pretend, and it goes subterranean, and
that's also indicting, because those of us that are in that feel like we're ostracized from the church. Oh, okay, well, I can't really go to church because I'm dealing with this thing, and I'm not really welcome.
That's right. That's right. Because it ruins the infomercial.
Yeah.
Imagine the infomercial the Apostle Paul would have given for Jesus. All right, so I was riding a donkey and I got knocked on my keister. And then I've been shipwrecked, and I've been bitten by snakes, and I've been beaten and thrown off cliffs and persecuted everywhere I go. And yeah, you should follow Jesus. It's great.
He's like the master of prison ministry.
Right, exactly. He spent all of his time in prison. He's martyred. You know, I mean, that doesn't fit the infomercial quite. No. You know, so is that me?
That's you.
Oh man! All right. Hold on a second. This is Mrs. Erre. Justy, you're on the podcast. Say hi.
Oh, goodness, I'm so sorry. Good morning, everyone.
Hey, what do you like about being married to your husband?
That you can reach tall things and carry heavy objects.
Okay, what about the kissing?
That's a mood.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, can I call you a little...
Yeah.
Can I call you a little bit?
Yeah, I love you.
Okay, I love you too.
Goodbye.
All right, Mrs. Erre making a surprise...
cameo
appearance on the Vox podcast today. So if the answer isn't to pretend, and if the answer isn't to escape and numb, what's the answer? Well, I think the Dos Equis guy has it right. Stay thirsty, my friend. I think
the most interesting man in the world.
Absolutely, but I guess he's fired now.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So they got to go someone younger.
Right. And he had a contract where he couldn't drink anything else when he was in public too.
Well,
of course.
Of course.
Okay, go on.
I'll take that. How much money do you think that guy made shooting those commercials, right? So, but I think he's actually onto something, because there's a sense in which take and this isn't a perfect example, but take depression and anxiety. I have asked God to get rid of it. Right? I take meds for it. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I feel. I've asked God to take it away. And it's gotten better, whether that's God or the meds or some combination of both, it's gotten better. But it still hangs over there. If I don't take that medicine every 24 hours, I get twitchy. I still have panic attacks. I have chest pains that are not heart attacks, don't worry, but I can feel the just panic. And I just have to walk with this. And I've asked God so many times, why don't you take this away? And the temptation is to numb it and to escape it, or to pretend like it's not there, right? Because I'm a pastor or whatever. But what I've learned is it causes me to be alive and thirsty. And what that means is it forces humility, it forces dependence, it forces prayerfulness, it forces fidelity to Jesus, even when it's not working. It forces faith. It gives birth to hope that it won't always be this way. It serves. It's exactly what Paul, the same guy we were talking about just a few minutes ago, he called it a thorn in his flesh. And it could be a physical malady. It could be an emotional thing. We don't know what it was, but he called it a thorn, something that caused him pain. And he said he prayed 3 times for God to take it away. And God refused and said, no, my strength is actually perfected when your strength is brought to its end. That's how you translate actually that verse. That's where the podcast someday. My strength is brought to bear when your strength ends, and my grace is enough is the idea. And so there was a sense in which instead of running from it, I tried that. I tried escaping. I tried pretending. I tried religiousing my way out of this. If I just pray more, if I have more faith, if I find some person with the gift of healing to pray for me, it'll be all okay. But I've actually found, and I still do those things, but it's an area of disappointment to me. And so what I do now as a follower of Jesus is I keep on asking, I keep on seeking, I keep on knocking. It drives me actually to God over and over and over and over. I don't think God gave me depression and anxiety. I don't see God giving cancer. I don't see God, arranging car wrecks or abuse or rape or murder. No, of course not. But what I see God doing is then using those things to bring good. I think he can bring good out of anything. But part of the good that he brings is the idea now that my restlessness is boundaried in covenant relationship. And if turned to and not run from, can be some of the biggest fuel for worship, for devotion, for prayer, for humility. And I found some of the best soul work that's ever been done in my soul has come because I can't run from this. I have to sit in this. I can't fix it. I can't religious my way out of this. I can't pretend my way out of this, and I can't escape my way out of this. And so this can be either be a very cliched point of view, or it can be a deep and very meaningful posture of heart. Because, when I first started struggling with depression and anxiety, people would just say, well, just read the Bible more, pray more, try to have more faith.
Mm-hmm. We hear the terminology, just give it to God. Just give it to God. And is that I think that's kind of like the pretending idea. Like, give it to God and you just got to move on and kind of pretend it doesn't exist, and hopefully it'll fall off and God's taking care of it. And
that's right. Yeah, exactly right. And so for me, none of that was helpful. And instead, what has been helpful is understanding, okay, part of disappointment comes from the fact that I'm bent towards darkness, and I hurt people and people hurt me. There is an adversary that's real. This whole spiritual world, I think, is real. But it's also built into the fabric of human life that nothing is ever going to satisfy the way that I know it could and the way that I think it should. And some of that is because God has allowed gap. And that gap can be used as fuel for the kind of the God-centered life, the Jesus-following kind of life. That it used to be a source of kind of bitterness and disappointment. Now it's a source of fuel. And that happens after a while when you sit in it, you can't escape from it, and you learn to integrate it in, okay, this is just part of who I am. God is not against it. I'm not out of his favor because of it. And that what it's producing in me is like really amazing stuff that could never, at least for me, I couldn't have gotten another way. I'm dumb. I love strength. I love being bigger than life. Not literally. I love, being in my element, and to have to limp even with God, and to realize it's the death of the infomercial, and that there's still disappointment with God. And what he does is he reframes it, he regaps it, he kind of uses it now as this consistent pull of my heart to him. That's what we hope for, because the promise of God isn't that you're going to get married tomorrow, or that you'll be able to have children, or that you'll be off of porn instantaneously. I've seen those things happen. I've seen them happen.
Yeah.
So I pray for them, and I want them for you and for me. But I've also seen the very long slog through recovery. I've seen the very long slog through like mental illness. I've seen the long slog through repairing a marriage that has been broken. And I'm not sure when God does something instantaneously, what that does to a person. All I know is what the slog has done to me, which has been really powerful. And I couldn't have gotten here otherwise. And so I just want to open up the possibility that there are these gaps wherever you are, in an aircraft carrier, in a house church in Africa, working out because there's a gap between, between what your waist size is and what it should be. So wherever you are, there's this sense that the disappointment and this kind of unmet desire, we have to overcome the infomercial part of, the sales job to find covenant faith. And when you find covenant faith and begin to rest in it, it begins to do stuff. And the stuff doesn't have to do with fixing. It has to do with reframing. It has to do with perspective. It has to do with like what happens in marriage when you work through a difficult season. There's something that's stronger on the other side of it. So my encouragement's not to numb. That's easy, and I've done it. I get it. Or to pretend. That's the one we always want to beat up on, right? The church should be the safest place to say, nope, I got a huge gap here and it's killing me. but it's instead to be alive and thirsty. To stay thirsty, my friends. We need some of that music. All right, so thank you for the reviews on iTunes. Those are super important in getting the word out about us. Really appreciate them. And Twitter, Facebook, as always, voxoc.com. We're getting ready to launch a church, Andy.
Almost there.
We're almost there. We're about 4 or 5 weeks out, and we're not gonna tell anybody when exactly we're doing. It's kind of a rolling start, but it's coming. And we're busy doing that. And the podcast is going to be a huge part. So we want you to know you can participate in this community regardless whether or not you go to the local expression of the community. And we're hearing from, I don't know, Andy, we probably have 10 different people that have emailed us and said they want to form little Vox communities in other parts of California and other parts of the country.
And all based on just what you guys are hearing on the podcast. Like we never deployed a vision that says, hey, we'd really love you guys to start doing this. This is people who've just said, hey, this is something I think I'd be interested in doing. How can I do that?
I have never deployed anything. I can't use that word of anything, let alone vision.
Yeah.
So no deploying. Yeah. Unless you're on an aircraft carrier, then you know deployment. That's then right. You absolutely know. That's true. But no, this is all happening ahead of us. And so just let us know how we can resource you, how we can be a blessing to you. One of the things we're thinking of doing is someday, if we have money, to hire somebody to help coordinate Vox communities all throughout the country. Not because we have any interest in taking over the world, but because there seems to be this like-mindedness, this tribe that's gathering that's super fun. So I'd like to do blessing for you today, and we're going to go with the number 6 blessing. All right?
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's the one I always do, except for last week.
Okay. All right. That one's called the number 6.
Yeah, that's from the book of Numbers, chapter 6. You know, one of the nice things about Andy is he doesn't know his Bible word jack. Okay? Fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All right, that's the order, buddy.
Yeah.
And number 6 is a part of the Bible. So it's nice. It's great to have a non-believer here with me.
It sounded like a menu item. I was like,
a number 6? I'll take a number 6 blessing, please. It's part of the infomercial, right? Listen, if you say yes to Jesus, you get a number 6 blessing.
That's right.
Here you go. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you, and may he give you peace in these days. Amen and amen. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Vox, the Mike Erre podcast. Be sure to like Mike on Facebook at facebook.com/official Mike Erre. Follow Mike on Twitter and Periscope at Mike Erre for live interaction and ongoing Q&A. Don't forget to visit subversivekingdom.com for further engagement and information about Mike.